Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Country Jukebox Podcast with Raymond and James. Today, we want to do an album review on North Carolina guy Scotty McCreery. May 10th came out with a new album called Rise and Fall. We're going to go through some of the tracks on that and talk about that a little bit, and hope y'all have heard it because it's really, really good country music.
There's not a bad song on the whole CD, man.
I agree.
It's very good. I'll start it out.
Okay.
Red Letter Blueprint. I love this song. It's I love country songs that are like Christian related without them being like actual gospel songs. I know I've talked about this before, but throughout
good description.
Yeah, throughout the song, it's just basically showing that the Bible is a map of how to live your life, and it was left to him from, I believe, his grandfather, and how, you know, typical story about how like it was dusty, and then one day he needed it, and he realized that, you know, that the Bible is literally a roadmap of how you should live. So I think that's a great song, and pretty much any time a country star comes up with their own version of a Christian song, I usually love it. It's usually pretty good.
Me too. I like how, you know, everybody knows what a blueprint is. It's a design plan or technical drawing. I like how the double use of the words there, red letter blueprint. Like this is a blueprint, but it's a red letter blueprint, red letter as in the words of Jesus. Couldn't describe it any better than you did, but like you said, it has answers to literally everything you've ever lost, or anytime you've been lost in search of something, it's got the answers. And I think my favorite line in the whole thing is, ain't it just like Jesus to keep his arms wide open when you need him? And I think my second favorite line is the one about it leaves no doubt between right and wrong. And it doesn't. There's no gray area. So just an incredible song.
Yeah, we're going to do a short on that one. And the thing that we're getting into with the shorts is every single time one of our artists we like would drop a new song, we do a short. It comes up to like almost turn the podcast into them, and that's why we kind of stagger the shorts, you know. And every time they drop a song, don't do every one.
That's right.
I really want to do one on that. My next one is Cabin and Solo. I really like to play on words there, and it's almost one of those songs where, first of all, it's a great song, but the first couple times you hear it, you pick up on another reference.
Yeah.
And it kind of remind me of That Ain't My Truck a little bit. To an extent, and I
can definitely picture that.
It is one of the, if not the best song on the whole album.
And the first release off the album, it was big for him. It did really, really good on radio and everything. As a matter of fact, it's funny. I know for the longest time, I primarily keep it on Prime Country or Willie's Roadhouse, you know, the older stuff with the 80s and 90s stuff. But every now and then I would turn it over to, I get it confused, the more contemporary ones like The Highway, and maybe it's Y2 Country. It's one of those. Mm-hmm. Every now and then, if I'm not necessarily into what they're playing on those first two stations, I'll put it over on that one. Oh, let's see what's new. And I swear, out of like 7 or 8 times of flipping it over there, that song was on 6 or 7 of them.
Oh, really?
It seemed like every time I turned it over there, which luckily I was familiar with it because, you know, it's Scotty.
Yeah.
But yeah, they played the junk out of that song.
It's very good.
Love Like This. I think that's a really good song. I like how the song starts out about, I love the mountains, I love the coast, I love firewood burning. He's giving you your typical analogy of all the things he loves in life. But then it is a love song, but it's kind of a double, not just your typical love song, you know, I love my girlfriend, I love my wife, whatever. It's he goes on, the song is basically about the birth of his first child. And I like the line about, like I said, he loves all those things. The firewood, the coast, just tells all his favorite things in life, but nothing like the love for seeing you with our child. And, you know, he knew he loved his wife, but now seeing her love the child just makes him love me more, which is what a family is. So I just think that's a really good song.
Yeah, I got that song up there too. We did do a short on that one.
Yep.
To me, it just reminds me of, reliving exactly what he said, like myself, you know, I talk about Liam on just about every podcast, but I kind of feel that way when I hear that song, and I think that's why I love it so much.
Yeah.
My next one is Lonely. The title of that song ended up being completely different than what I thought it was going to be. And And it's kind of got like a Party Crowd by David Lee Murphy's vibe to it. But basically, he thinks that he's breaking up with his girl or whatever, but then he goes out and has a good time, and he realizes that lonely ain't lonely after all. And to me, it's just got such a 90s. I mean, it seems like it came right out of 95.
I love that.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially that chorus, man. It's so good. There ain't a bad song on the whole album. So, I hope y'all do check this out if you haven't already. But that song's got a very 90s feel to it.
Yeah. Slow Dance is probably one of my two favorites. There's two that I go back and forth in between, but this is one of those two, and it's called Slow Dance. And basically it's your song about how life turns into life and gets busy, but he comes home to her and she's his solace, and what he comes home to all the time. And I like the three different verses when he hits into the verse and he says, "You're my slow dance." I like how the first verse he mentions Keith Whitley, the second he mentions George Strait, and the third he mentions Conway Twitty. Because it's not your typical, Strait's being mentioned a lot these days because the musicians are younger and stuff, but it's not your typical, like we've talked about how we can't stand for name dropping and all that sort of stuff, and there's usually two names that's dropped all the time. But this, if you know anything about Scotty, you can tell that's three guys that he listens to a lot. So it makes sense. It fits in this particular situation. And I think my favorite line in that song is, "You're the needle on the vinyl of pure country gold." So everything's it's that song you would go back in the 80s and early 90s when they had it, and you would go to a pizza joint or something, you go play the jukebox and you would want to play.
Yeah.
So it's a good song.
Another thing, too, I was going to mention to you, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but of the name drops, obviously, I'm not even going to mention the two that you're talking about, because everybody knows. George Strait has always been mentioned, but he ain't rammed down your throat. But I noticed Keith Whitley's made a comeback in mentioning. It seemed like right here recently a lot of people mentioning him.
Which is weird for this generation to me, but I'm glad they've discovered it.
But the one that surprised me most was the Conway Twitty reference. I love that, because that never happens.
Because that would have typically been mentioned with those first two we were talking about. So, but yeah, I'm glad that's made it. Twitty and Whitley made a comeback.
Yeah, matter of fact, we're expecting another son. I don't know if podcast listeners know that or not, but we still haven't came up with a name yet. And the lady that works at my wife's doctor, when we go get like ultrasound stuff done, recommended we name him Conway.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you?
No. No, I mean, I love Conway Twitty. I'm not big on that name though.
Right. Yeah. I don't think I would be.
Yeah, but she's tore up over it. So.
Yeah.
But good job for her.
I just had a thought while you were telling that, man. Congratulations, by the way. Everybody told you congratulations, and your wife.
Yeah.
But what would have been funny is if I didn't know that and you just told me that right here, and you told me that at the same time you told all the listeners.
That would have
been funny. So.
That would be pretty good. You did that one right. Yeah, Slow Dance. All right, my next one is Can't Pass the Bar. And to me, it's just one of those. I remember the first time I heard this song, I was pulling into work, and I mean, it was like, I'm trying, it's early in the morning, I'm trying to drive like 10 through the parking lot, but the song's going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's just got a, and I try not.
That's probably one of the ones that's going to be the most fun, him doing the live show.
Yeah. I try not to compare every song, but it just helps me to give a description. So, to me, it's like Trouble by Travis Tritt, Ain't Going Down.
Yeah.
I mean, Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up by Garth Brooks, all of those.
Yeah.
And it's just...
I think the first time you mentioned to me, you mentioned Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned that. That definitely fits.
Yeah, and another thing, too, like the... like I said, I don't know if... I haven't done enough research to know how much writing he did in this album, and I should have before I did this, but there's so much, like... Can't Pass the Bar could be like, what he's saying is like he can't pass like the juke joint or whatever, but Can't Pass the Bar is also like the lawyer term.
Right.
So I mean, it's just he.
A lot of double meaning stuff on this album.
It's so well written, man. I love it, so well written, and I love that song, but I love them all.
And speaking of all that, I think there's 12 tracks on here. I didn't realize, we've just gotten into him the last couple of years, and his music's gotten better the last couple of years. Yeah. But I didn't realize what a great writer he was, because he at least co-wrote 11 of the 12 tracks on there.
Oh, really?
And maybe that's something he didn't used to do, or maybe we're just learning it. But that's impressive to me. If you write a third of it, I'm impressed, because I'm impressed by songwriters. But if you write that much of one and it's this good, then I'm definitely impressed.
Well, I tell you when I started back listening to him, so not for no particular reason, I just never really listened to him. And I knew he came out with that 5 More Minutes song, which I thought was good. My wife told me about one about 4 or 5 years ago, and this is when I started listening to him. It's called In Between.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the song kind of reminded her of me. So I listened to it. I was like, man, this is actually pretty good. So I researched him and found out he went independent. I was like, okay, let's see if he keeps
perked
this
your ears
up.
up a little bit.
Yeah. And it's just been great. I mean, I think he's some of the best music that's coming out of modern country right now.
Yeah, and and just became an opera member, and just everything's going good for him.
Yeah.
Fall of Summer. I can relate to this, not necessarily because of the topic, but this song is talking about just like fall of summer, 2 seasons, but he's talking about the fall of summer, and he took a fall in his love life is what he's saying. But I do it with songs too, but he mentions this song, this time of year, the smell of the summer and the beach, and it could be the mountains and the cold, but whatever time of year that you got your heart broke, or you did this or you did this. I've always like smells and places I've been and stuff like that. I've always been able to associate that with, and I won't give any examples on here, but I've always been able to associate things like that with what was going on in my life at the time. Like if I revisit this place, or I smell this, or I see this, it's just like songs. Songs remind you of what was going on during that time of your life that the song came out. That's basically what he's talking about in this song. Is it's that time of year, and he's in those places, and he remembers getting his heart broke by this particular girl. And I think this might have been one where he even mentions being at state and her coming to see him and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's pretty autobiographical. But it's talking about his fall that summer, getting his heart broke that summer, the fall of summer. I just thought that was a really good song. And again, another one of those double meaning songs. I mean, he loves that stuff, and it's good.
Yeah,
that's what country music used to be written.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing too. My last one is No Country for Old Men, and it's one of my favorite on the whole album. And it's
the best track on the album.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And it's basically saying what everyone else wants to say about the way country music's gone, and not just the way it's gone, but the way that if you go somewhere to where you should be hearing good country music, still like what they will call country music isn't. Like, he mentioned all these different things that if they just had it in the jukebox, he'd put a 20 in. They don't even have any of that.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for people that like that's what they want to hear, and then they'll have something else that's like been called country for so long that even some of us have started to accept it, and then you don't really realize that.
And you don't have to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of the way that it's gotten. But to me, this song reminds me a lot of They Used to Call Me Country by John Party. And the description of the guy in the song was kind of like Dinosaur by Hank Jr. He's seeing all these newer things, and he's wishing it was the way that it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just of every song up here, I've listened to that and Cabin Solo the most.
Yeah, and No Country for Old Men is the best statement song. To me, the best statement song of what's going on in the music industry, kind of like you said, that I've heard, maybe as good as I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'll even go that far. Maybe as good as I've ever heard. They wrote the mess out of that one, man. It's just it's the best track on the album.
Yeah, I mean, and then like some of the references that he mentioned in there, and even the normal ones, like when he mentioned
I thought about that.
He dropped a 20 in if they could play Jolene. Like most of the time, you don't really drop a lot of Dolly songs in your
right.
So yeah, I think that's just awesome, man.
Yeah, I do too. Matter of fact, I'll even go as far as to say probably the best country song I've heard. I don't know. I might have said that before, and I might be getting caught up in it, but it's in the best top 5 country songs I've heard in several years.
Yeah,
I will go that far.
I agree.
Another one I mentioned on here, I'm going to mention him here, Stuck Behind a Tractor. I think that's pretty cool because, and we've had a lot of songs like this lately, but he's had so much good stuff that it's hard not to get them confused. But it's basically your typical, and I think several artists have songs with this idea, but I agree with the idea. When you're young and you want to get out and you want to do something different, you want to explore. He talks about how he's living in his town is too small, it's too slow, he's got to get out. But then he grows up in life and then he wants to get back where he came from. And I can relate to that because at some point I want to get back out in the country and maybe Stokes or wherever I want to get out of the city life of Greenville anyway. But I love my favorite line on this one. I'm all about lines right now. My favorite line on this one was, "The grass ain't greener where grass don't grow." Man, that's perfect. So I just thought that was a really cool song. Stuck Behind a Tractor kind of sucks you in anyway with the title of it. So, but not gonna worry about that one.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna get onto a starting point with this album, listen to No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
That would be the starting point.
Yep.
If I was y'all, if you haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, if you don't like that one, this podcast probably ain't for you, to be honest with you, because that's that is what we originated when we first came up with the idea of doing this podcast. The stuff that you mentioned in that song is kind of what we wanted to bring back. Right. And I know sometimes we drive home the exact same names, the exact same albums,
but that's what we like.
Yeah, so that's the way it works.
Yeah. So.
But anyway, we'll see y'all next time. Take care.